What is the most genius marketing strategy a company has ever used? There was a real estate company that took a bunch of shells, branded them with their logo, and put them along the shoreline in time for a colony of hermit crabs that came out to find their new homes. Crabs picked up the branded shells and migrated back to the ocean. They caught the event on video and made a commercial about helping you find your new home. Brilliant. Or I love this. P.T. Barnum once had an act with a woman named Heth, purported to be 160 years old and a nursemaid to George Washington. To boost ticket sales, he would send scathing, anonymous letters to the editor of the newspapers in whatever town Heth was currently appearing in, saying the act was a fake and she wasn't really 160 years old. That would stir up controversy and people would come and buy a ticket to decide for themselves. That reminds me of the tactics used by Diaghilev, the impresario behind the ballet's Russes. He spread so much press about how sinfully dissonant and unmusical Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring was that they had a full house on opening night, and they were prepared to riot. The Monopoly game at McDonald's is pretty good. The chances have always been absolutely shit that you'll actually win anything of value. But we used to get that paper board every year and try to fill it up when I was a kid. This game was victim to a massive scandal where someone in charge of the largest prize pieces wasn't sending them to be put on cups, but stealing them and selling them to family and friends. Diamond industry. They linked diamonds with engagement and did lots of other things. They convinced the world that diamonds are rare and not worthless. It's incredible. Of course a lot of people are wise to the scam now. Diamonds have many extremely useful industrial applications. They're definitely not useless. Certainly overpriced though. When does Twitter manage to make a multi-million-dollar company look like your relatable sassy friend by roasting others? The first thing I did after learning that McDonald's was going to offer spicy chicken nuggets was visit Wendy's Twitter. I was not disappointed. Must have scraped up all of BK's leftovers and slapped McPress tag on it. Fucking died. Way I back. I remember the first, and for the longest time, only crossover ad, and it was brilliant. You think you're watching a commercial for Trix cereal, and the rabbit steals a bowl of Trix and runs away. But after making a few decent turns, he rounds a bush and manages to get away with the bowl of cereal. But then he looks down with a dejected look at the bowl in his hands and a message pops up on the screen. Got milk? I laughed my ass off. As a kid I never realized the true nature of those ads. I believed they were more along the lines of a publicly funded SAS, like D-A-R-E, or something. I didn't realize until years later it was all just the milk industry paying a duckload of money to make it seem legit. The whole campaign was genius marketing really. Those types of ad campaigns, got milk, pork, the other white meat, beef, it's what's for dinner, the incredible, edible egg, etc. are paid for by the Uster and the producers absolutely hate them because they get taxed for it. The whole build up to the Blair Witch Project. Sometimes it's hard to explain to younger folks why an admittedly mediocre movie like Blair Witch was such a phenomenon. The marketing was absolutely perfect. So perfect. Some people really thought it was real found footage. My cousin was walking around the mall with his friends when they were approached by some guys offering a free movie screening to the Blair Witch Project. They asked what it was about, and the guy told them it was some kind of documentary that used real/found footage. And so my cousin and his friends lost interest. They didn't want to watch a documentary, but the guy gave a brief description on what the movie was about and convinced them to watch it. My cousin and his friends freaked out, told all of their friends and family, which convinced me and my friends to all try to somehow find a theater that was showing the movie. We had to wait a few weeks for it to come out in the theaters, and by then, word had got out that it was fake. My friends and I were super disappointed that we couldn't experience the true terror of watching the film thinking it was real footage. In the 90s, R.J. Reynolds, Camel Cigarettes, came out with the advertising campaign for Joe Camel. It was so successful that studies showed by age 6, nearly as many children could correlate Joe Camel to cigarettes as could correlate Mickey Mouse to Disney. The Marlboro Points in early mid-90s was also super popular. My parents were Marlboro smokers growing up, and they had tons of Marlboro branded jackets and duffel bags. Coca-Cola putting people's names on the bottles was a stroke of genius. Genius/nefarious. BP inventing personal carbon footprint calculator so that individuals can be shamed for any wasteful/harmful behavior, while taking the pressure off fossil fuel companies for the extensive damage they've done to the planet. This is truly one of the most overlooked ones. How many people felt the need to get reusable grocery bags or update to a more fuel-efficient vehicle before they really needed to? Not only did they manage to sell a ton of green products to people, but they also managed to hide the fact that shipping, manufacturing, and factory-style farming cause much more pollution than even huge cities worth of individuals and their actions. As a bagger, I like reusable bags, but I agree, it's kinda bullshit. New Coke. Take away the long-beloved flavor of Coca-Cola and replace it with a Pepsi-tasting knockoff. After a few months of starving the population of Coca-Cola, bring it back as Coke Classic and rake in millions. I seriously doubt that it was planned this way, as New Coke was a major blunder. But in the end it actually boosted sales of Coke Classic. So it's fun to think that it was all a big marketing conspiracy. It was a weird year. Bill Cosby was the Coke pitch man and had spent months calling Coke the real thing RTM, only for the New Coke to totally jump into the middle of that campaign. Lots of folks theorize the shitty flavor and return to Coke Classic was all intentional to hide their transition from pure cane sugar to high fructose corn syrup as the sweetener. But that doesn't really add up financially in the first year or two. They could have just made the change without new branding costs and impact. Tobacco industry hijacking feminist movement to get women to smoke more. Oh, interesting. Could you please provide a link? Blair Witch Project, the original. They were the first to utilize the web during a period where information was scarcer and harder to confirm, so many thought it was real. Something that could have only been achieved in that particular time period. Not before. Not after. Not sure where I heard this. I think Mad Men. But it went like this. I'm not a marketing genius. Whoever came up with buy one get one free is a marketing genius. Apostrophe. Ugh. I saw buy one get one on a hearing aid commercial, and I'm pretty certain they meant individual pieces, not pairs. Just waiting for the day when they advertising mittens and shoes the same way. You actually generally get hearing aids in singles. Pretty much de-beers from ground up. Find a bunch of shiny rocks. Hoard them. Polish them up, then make up a brand new tradition of diamond engagement rings which people somehow accept. Profit. Jewelry and ducking general. Same with luxury watches. Add a bunch of fancy materials. Voila. Skewed price. Watches are just jewelry for men because marketing and culture dictated that normal men can't wear jewelry. Admittedly, a handmade luxury Swiss watch is an engineering and design wonder. Some of them have hundreds of tiny parts, machined to incredible tolerances, and then assembled by a watchmaker. Considering the price of living in Switzerland, it's not surprising that the watches cost more than $5,000. In the 90s, Pfizer created sildenafil as treatment for hypertension and altitude sickness. It was supposed to be marketed towards mountain climbers or people who are having difficulty acclimating to higher elevations. It worked by increasing circulatory blood flow and delivering more oxygen to the body. However, one of the unusual side effects of sildenafil was that the increase of blood flow gave male users massive uncontrollable erections. They tried to workshop the solution to the problem. They tried to downplay the severity of this side effect in clinical trials. But then they decided, instead of subdue the boner, they would embrace the boner. Today, sildenafil is still widely used among those braving extreme altitudes. But instead of asking for it by its original name, they would ask for it by a name that became entrenched in the mind of American advertising through Pfizer's wildly lucrative spin on marketing, a little blue pill called Viagra. I took this med while at high altitude and it sucks. No sleep and a raging hard on for hours. I'm not convinced I actually needed it either. So did you duck the mountain or not? I would say Lil Nas X shit posting on Twitter, not spending a dime, and then went on breaking all sorts of records. In the 90s Pepsi wasn't doing so well in the Philippines, so they came up with something called number fever. It was a normal Pepsi bottle, but on the back of the bottle cap there was a number. Every night on TV I think someone would read the winner numbers and the people with the corresponding number would win from a few dollars to approximately $1 million. This was really popular at the time because a lot of people were suffering of poverty. Sadly, a few years later something happened called the 349 incident. The number which was supposed to be the winner number for $1 million was produced way too much due to a computer error or something like that. Thousands of people started to protest because they wanted their money, which led to number fever being discontinued. Pepsi points. I remember collecting them and sending them in. Got a dog tag and a hacky sack. Didn't some guy try to get a fighter jet out of that? KFC replacing turkeys with fried chickens as the annual Christmas tradition across the entire Japan. I just watched the Super Bowl for the commercials. Definitely not the most genius marketing strategy. It is, in fact, the most obvious one possible. Show ads when the most people are watching. It is interesting though that, as a consequence of high competition for ad time, companies started making massive investments into their Super Bowl ads, which meant those ads tended to be extraordinarily good, resulting in people actually looking forward to them just for the entertainment value. We'll be in 2024 subscribing to Netflix. Well, I ducking hate it, but whoever came up with selling beer showing hot babes was right on the money. Drink our calorie-dense liquid that sends your appetite into overdrive, and you could have six-pack abs and be surrounded by bikini models. It's only about 120 calories in a typical bottle of beer, which is comparable to a glass of wine. The problem is the big amounts of junk food that tend to go with it, and sitting around all day watching football and pounding many bottles instead of going out and doing something active. Using the terms gingivitis and herpes scared people, and athlete's foot removed a bad stigma/thought with a positive one. What were they called before? Gooey tooth and pee-pee pimples? Herpes was simply cold sores before that. I think I was partially wrong about gingivitis. A mouthwash company scared people into thinking they had bad breath from gingivitis, which sounded pretty scary. Apple's original iPod commercials. TBH, almost all of Steve Jobs' ideas were extremely genius marketing strategies. His early products were on par with many other, much cheaper, variants, but the way they were marketed turned them into status symbols. Then the iPhone hit, and it was like an iPod you could make calls on. I mean shit, they make their phones with less customization and power than their Android counterparts and charge more for it. The new Apple is unhackable thing is largely a marketing strategy as well. Sure, they're a bit more secure, but nothing is totally secure. They blew it with what's a computer. At least they got the message and pulled the ads. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.